All right, this is the first review video for the Project 5 midterm project. And on this video, we've got Franco Fazelia, Nick, and Rian. And so, Franco, these are really looking good. I wished I was seeing more of the process that you got, that you went through to get to these designs. These are really nicely done. um, and so just seeing the process, what shapes you used, and as you started to apply filters and the effects and so on, it would have been nice to kind of see that process, to see how you got where you got to. So please remember to do that in the future, and you might even go backward in your history panel and maybe go back a few and then save that version, and then go back a few more and save that, just so I can kind of see what happened. Because when I see these pieces and they're fairly well developed, and there's no, and I can't really tell exactly how you got there. It just helps me to see what you were doing and how you manipulated the shapes and what effects you used and so on. So that being said, this one definitely is a winner. This one's a winner. I'd probably scrap that one. This one has potential, but it's still feeling a little bit, kind of a little rough. But if you kind of pushed it a little further, like you were doing with these two, that would be fine. And this one, it's working. It's I might suggest possibly working with the stroke effects a little bit more, so that they're not quite so, they're kind of obvious, right? The spiral shape right in here, and this triangular pyramid thing right here, and these lines, these are still very literal, where the elements that are in the background are quite a bit more, they're maintaining a certain level of abstraction, which is kind of where we want to go. So I might push this one to the point where I might even lose this triangle shape, and I might even lose the spiral. And then I might consider thinking about where the this kind of electric linear shape, what could that do? If you really kind of amped up the stroke effect on that, what would happen? And then of course there's always blend modes and all kinds of other cool stuff that you could do as well. So I'd probably go somewhere down that route, rather than trying to push these rather, the shapes aren't, they're not playing that well together with the rest of the design. So I'd scrap the spiral and the tripod, the triangle thingy, and then simplify it a little bit that way, and then work with this electric line a little bit more. And I think then you'll be on the right path for that one. So those are the three I think that are working the best. And again, if you wanted to push this one around a little bit more, you certainly can. Hello, there it goes. So I mean, it's you might even perhaps, what, I don't know, simplify it slightly. The effects are kind of fun. I guess it depends on what you call it, puzzled, and I guess I'd be okay with that. Maybe some color experiments to see where that might go could be kind of fun too. And of course, I would definitely explore colors in any of the designs. Color experiments are always a good thing, because you never know what might turn up by playing around with the palettes a little bit. Okay, Franco, so these are looking really, really good. Nice job. Okay, next we have Fazelia. And I saw some of these in class on Wednesday, and they're coming along nicely. Um, you know, you have a nice feel for the sort of the austere, kind of clean, unfettered designs. Be careful of the energy, being very close to the middle. It'd be good to pull that out of the middle somewhere. This one, I would definitely explore colors with a little bit more. But it's probably fine compositionally. This one also, it's rather balanced and symmetrical, so you might consider thinking about the symmetry, and maybe breaking it down a little teeny bit, so that it's not like there kind of thing. And so it might rotate it slightly, or maybe grow some of these, or maybe make them smaller, or playing around a little bit more with a little bit more in the contrast department. that might be useful. This little border edge is kind of fun. And again, color palettes on this one might be appropriate. This one here it's still feeling a little bit literal. In other words, it's still very vector-like, and so I would encourage you to sort of explore some of the other effects on this one if indeed you wanted to push this one forward. And then, of course, color is always a good idea. I probably would scrap this one. This one and this one look like they're pretty much the same, so I would pick one or the other, but not both. Then I might work with this one. You have several good ones, and I guess that's what we're trying to do right now, is to figure out which ones to push forward. This one definitely has potential, and again, it's a situation where you just want to kind of play around maybe a little bit with some blend modes and color, and maybe overlapping some of these shapes a little bit more, playing a little bit more with scale. The bleed is a good idea. I might encourage more of that so that you have a little bit more of that feeling of the energy, coming into the window. So that might be something I would definitely explore. Probably scrap that one. Let's see. Yeah. I mean, it's good. You might just play with color on that and just to sort of see what happens. But you've got enough good ones. I don't know that we need to push every single one of them. And this one also has some potential, but it's probably similar, now that I'm thinking about it, to this one. So between these two, I probably would pick this one. And then we talked about one of those two and this one. And okay, so we got 1 and 1, 2, 3. And if you wanted to push a fourth one, let's see what that one looks like. Yeah, maybe this could work. This is kind of fun. I like how you're playing with the blend modes on that. I think that's working nicely. You might maybe just eliminate this little shape right there. I don't know that it's necessary. It's kind of added on and it feels a little out of place. I think the shapes that you have are working well and it doesn't need any more than that. So you might just get rid of that and maybe play around with color some. And that would give you plenty to work on for Wednesday. All right, Fazelia, nice job. He's looking good. All right, next we have Nick. Okay, these are looking good. I saw some of these on Wednesday as well. This one certainly is a winner. I like what you're doing. These are both good. All three of those, actually. These are kind of the same thing right there, and these are very nice. They have a very kind of soft, kind of ethereal look to them. So for sure I'd pick this one, and I like where you're going with it, so I might just explore colors with this, and yeah, probably color. Some of the softer solutions are a possibility. The addition of these kind of little linear elements is kind of fun. It's definitely worth exploring perhaps a little bit further. So I would say, yeah, why don't you go ahead and work with that and this, and that's the same essentially. This one is definitely going along the right direction. You might explore some of the edge effects, some blur or some shadow or a noise or a stroke effect or something like that, just to sort of see what might happen there. That would be worth exploring a little further. Then, of course, always color palettes. You might even explore overlapping these shapes a little bit and then playing around with blend modes. That could be kind of fun. It looks like this is an addition to this. This is actually a cleaner design because it's just simpler, and so in some ways this is more effective. This is certainly a nice design just by itself. You might explore, of course, color. This is rather monochromatic at the moment, which is not a bad thing, but what about a complementary color addition someplace careful? Could give that a lot of energy, a lot of punch, so that might work. You might even explore getting things off the vertical and then sort of playing around with angles or something like that. I think of the derivatives of this design here. This is probably the one I'd work with. I'd probably not work with that one. This design here has certain potential for sure. It's just a matter now of exploring that relationship of these sort of darker, thinner lines with some of these more aggressive, more energetic shapes, and then sort of playing around a little bit with, maybe scale. How thick is the line? What's the opacity? What's the effect on it? Do you need both of these? Do you need one? Would it be beneficial to have more of these elements, or just duplications of them and altered in some way to keep them from looking too repetitious? So those are some things you can think about there. The palette is cool. When you start playing around with some of this complexity in here, you want to ask yourself, okay, if I'm going to do that, do I want to really push that complexity into the rest of the design? Because at the moment it feels like it's complex in the corner for no reason. So now what you want to think about is that, okay, well, if I got this complexity, should it move? Should it get larger? Should there be a mirror of it or something else in another place? So those are some things to think about. So that definitely is worth pushing. This one, of course, that one, and these two. So you've definitely got plenty of stuff to do. This is nice too, actually. I like what you did here. Now that I saw this in the larger size, it looks pretty cool. So this is nice. These are actually looking good. Some of these are kind of done. All I'm asking, I guess, is to sort of explore some color options and seeing if they go anyplace else. You're kind of using the same exact color solution for the most part in all of these designs. So by pushing out of that solution into something else, it might go somewhere else. So you might think about that. Okay, Nick, so these are looking really good. Nice job. And then Rian, you're just getting started. So I would say you need to kind of get going there, honey. You're kind of exploring some of the softer elements that are possible, and so that's a good place to go. But really, what you don't want to do is get into these kinds of things. You won't be able to control it, and so it gets just really just too crazy and too out of control. So it's best to be simple, like what you're doing here, for example. This is, even though it's really quiet and it's really soft, it's actually one of the better designs. Now, granted, it is all centered, right? So that this center point is the center of your focal, and you kind of want to, maybe move that off to the side somewhere, and maybe think about where these triangular corners go. But that's the one that's going in the right direction. It's simple and it's got a little bit of emotion to it. These are too hard edged and too busy. So you need to get going a little bit more on the more softer edge stuff. So look at what your classmates are doing and look at some of the samples. See if you can't get some ideas about where you can go with that. All right, Mian? Okay, so good job, you guys. Looking good.